Alright, hey everybody. It's your boy here. Um, so in essence, I have decided to create a series, Politics for Beginners. And I feel that in the time of this current political climate, it's very important to understand what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all that are all about. You know? And in essence, we're going to be going over what all these things mean, and I'm going to be reading them and then breaking them down thing by thing. We got transcripts here, so they're not really biased. And I guess that's the thing I should mention. When you have documents as old as dirt like these are, there's a lot of different interpretations of things. And I'll probably go into a few of those a little bit. Like maybe some famous cases in which some things I would argue are misinterpreted, and some things certain people would argue wouldn't, and yada yada. All right. Let's begin though. So here we have the Constitution. Now the thing about the Constitution is it's really meant to outline what the government can and can't do. Whereas the Bill of Rights, which we'll get into in a minute, is more designed to outline the rights of average everyday citizens. So this is really just meant to outline what the government can and can't do. So let's start with the preamble here. Now, the preamble to the Constitution is sort of an introduction. It's not meant to really do much of anything in terms of setting powers and limits and such. Alright, so we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So to break that down real quick, so we, the average everyday person of the United States, in order to form a better government, that's what a more perfect union basically means. Try to establish a fair and secure domestic tranquility. So basically, nice, fair society, basically. And provide for the common defense and promote the general welfare. So that basically means is that we're going to keep the American citizens safe. That's the purpose of our government. And we're going to just generally speaking try to keep people doing good and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. So that means, hey, we're going to try to keep America free. And then they're saying, yeah, so here's the Constitution. So basically, the Constitution is, and there's a lot in here, so I'll probably be doing a lot of paraphrasing, and I'm going to skim a bit. So basically, this just outlines, how our government functions on a structural level. Like here we have the House of Representatives, get elected once every 2 years, and you gotta be at least 25 years old, and at least for 7 years been a citizen of the United States. And you gotta be a part of the state in which you are running. Senators, direct taxes shall be appointed among several states, excluding Indians, not tax, refits of all other persons. Right, well, that's the 3/5 thing. That got changed later. Vacancies happen in the representation from any state. The executive authority thereof shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies. So basically, what that's saying is, I guess, when there's nobody there running, I guess, they're gonna be appointed. Right, the Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, chosen by the legislature thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. That's pretty spot on there. That's how our current system of government works. See, a lot of this is pretty straightforward. Judgment in case shall extend no further than to removal of from office. This honor, trust, or profit under the United States with the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law. So that's impeachment there. So as you can see, a lot of this is just your average just outlining how our government works on a structural level. Like, a lot of things in here are about how certain things are set up, I think, a little later in here too. Alright, we got, executive power. We have President shall be Commander-in-Chief of the Army, Navy of the United States, and later the Air Force and Marines as well, and the militia of the several states when called it. And that's the thing about the Constitution, all these older documents, they have a habit of referring to a militia, which you won't see a lot of, and is, generally speaking, a very vague and confusing term when it comes to an illegal sense. And we'll get into that later when we're reading the Second Amendment. But for now, just keep in mind that that's one of the things that's been very up in the air when it comes to how you interpret it. Generally speaking, this is saying, hey, the president's in charge of the military. At the end of the day, he makes, the final say. The president, vice president, and all civil officers shall be removed from office on impeachment for conviction of treason, bribery, and or other high crimes and misdemeanors. So basically, you do something illegal, you're going to jail. Doesn't matter if you're the president or not. Let's see. So a lot of this, as stated previously, not much interesting going on here. Alright, so here we have the Bill of Rights and the amendments. Alright, First Amendment. Freedom of expression and religion, also known as freedom of speech. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. What that means is, in essence, we're not allowed to give any religion special treatment above others. Or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Okay, so what that means is, yes, we're not allowed to give religion special treatment. However, and this is one of the dicier things about free speech, or freedom of religion anyway, the first half of free speech, is that a lot of it seems a little contradictory. Alright, so you can't, make a law giving them special treatment, but at the same time you can't prevent them from doing whatever. And this has led to a lot of conflict in the cases of, like, more recently, there was an instance in which some Sikhs who were working at a police office wanted to wear a turban. And while they had a little thing they could wear over and then have their regular helmets, they more recently got the thing to a turban. And many argue that, they can't prohibit the free exercise thereof of religion, so that was justified. I, however, point to this: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, meaning, no, we're not supposed to do that. So a lot of these can go either way. Now, me personally, I believe that, when it comes to public office and stuff, like if you're working in the public sector, then yeah, you really shouldn't be doing that. And that is primarily because we're not supposed to make a law giving one special treatment over the other. And in the case of that I was saying earlier, sorry this is so rambly, but, like, let's say hypothetically you're an atheist, or a Christian, or just someone who says, hey, I want to wear a turban. Well, you're not allowed to, because it's a part of their religion. So now you're giving one religion special treatment over the other. Now, me personally, I believe the second part of this plays more into allowing churches to exist. In essence, what this says is the government has no right to prevent certain churches from existing, basically. That's what I think it believes anyway, or what it means anyway. Bleh. Alright. So, or abridging the freedom of speech. That's where this famously gets its other title, free speech, from. So basically what this means is you're not allowed to prevent people from saying what they want to say. You shouldn't be policing that, in essence. Or of the press, meaning the government doesn't have the right to censor the press. If you're a news outlet, you're allowed to give pretty much the facts. You're not, the government isn't allowed to say, hey, you can't say that, you can't put that on the air. I mean, could you just imagine in the Watergate scandal if that wasn't the case? And that's why this part exists. In the event of government corruption and trying to keep things secret. Or the right of the people to peaceably assemble. And that basically just ensures us the right to protest the government. As does this. And to petition the government for redress of grievances. Basically, that means you have the right to say to the government, hey, we got a problem with this. Also, key word here, peaceably. If shit hits the fan, you're SOL. Militia, there's that word again. Here we have the right to bear arms, or the right to keep and bear arms. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Alright, well, first off, generally speaking, it's believed that the people are the militia. Now, generally speaking, it's believed that what this means is that, a group of people, because what is a militia? A group of people banding together to fight back against something. So a well-regulated group of people being necessary to the security of a free state. Basically, a free state is like, a free nation. And this was, generally speaking, believed to be created in the event of government tyranny, as well as fighting against enemies, foreign and domestic. And what that means is, let's say hypothetically during World War II, if the Japanese were to invade America, that means the average Joe would have the right to go and shoot them in the face if they were under, being invaded by Nazis or anything like that. Also, keyword here, shall not be infringed. That means the government isn't allowed to prevent someone from owning a gun. Alright, the Third Amendment, quartering soldiers. No soldier shall, in a time of peace, be quartered in any house. And quartered basically means kept. Like, you can't force. And a little bit of context for this. During the colonial era of America, a lot of lobsterbacks, as they were called, British soldiers, were stationed in the 13 colonies, and the colonists living there, were kind of forced to provide for them. They had to have them living there, sleep there, and also provide like butter, ketchup, mustard, and shit like that. And a lot of people couldn't afford it, so that was a big deal. And basically what this is saying is you can't do that. Unless the person allows it to, in which case it is okay, which is what this second part, without the consent of the owner, is. Nor in a time of war, but in a manner prescribed by law. Meaning, you can't really do it in like a illegal fashion, I guess. And no matter what, you basically can't force soldiers to stay in someone's home unless it's allowed. Is basically what this is saying. Well, allowed by the person who owns the house. Amendment 4. The right to, this is where a lot of search warrants and stuff come from. That's kind of what this is meant to be. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause. Probable cause basically means you gotta have like a decent reason. Supported by the oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So basically they can't just come in and start digging through all your trash and shit. They gotta have a document saying, hey, we're gonna be searching here, and this is why, and this is what for. In other words, it's basically like a right to privacy. Alright, Amendment 5, Rights of Persons. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. So there's that word militia again. Again, it's a very confusing one. And again, I believe the people to be the militia. And I suppose I should provide a little bit more context into that. The thing about, George Washington and the like, they hated standing armies. They hated the British Army, which is generally speaking a standing army. They hated the idea of this big military force run by the government, which ironically enough is what we have today, but yeah, they weren't a fan. When in actual service, in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. So basically, that's why you can't be tried for murder twice, if that makes sense. Nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. Basically, you can't force someone to testify against themselves. Nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property. By the way, these are considered the 3 inalienable rights. Granted, there's a little variation. Sometimes, in certain cases, it's the right to pursue happiness rather than property. And if we ever get into, talking about the Magna Carta and stuff, then I'll probably go into that stuff too. Without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So basically, you gotta pay them back if you're using it and they're still in trial, I guess. Alright. Rights accused in criminal prosecutions. Oh, and by the way, another thing about the Fifth Amendment. Generally speaking, the Fifth Amendment is something used when you're on the stand. When someone asks you a question, when a judge asks you something, you can say, I plead the Fifth Amendment. And basically what that means is, I'm not going to answer this because I don't want to incriminate myself. And they can't use that against you. They can't use the fact that you used it against you. So keep that in mind for anybody going to jail anytime soon. You got that one to cover your ass. Alright, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial. So basically that means they can't drag it on for ages. Although ironically enough, that does have a tendency of happening. But not on purpose. For those of you who are aware of the O.J. Simpson case, for example, one of the main problems with that case was that it went on for too long. And because of that, a lot of the jurors just wanted to go home, so they just said, alright, screw it, he's innocent. Alright. By an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed. So basically, you gotta have people who aren't really biased in this and are from the same area. And generally speaking, another way you'll hear that worded is a trial of your peers, which means, local people. Which district shall have been previously ascertained by law. So basically it's like, alright, this district was already set up. And to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. Alright, so basically they gotta know what you're being accused of and why. To be confronted with the witness against him. To have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to the assistance of counsel for his defense. So in other words, he's got to help somebody out when it's defending him, and they also got to make sure they get witnesses that can corroborate any alibis of his if they exist. Alright, civil trials, which are very different from criminal, which are the previous two we've been going over. This is kind of like, minor stuff like property disputes and such. If you watch Judge Judy, this is generally speaking what's going on here. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20. So basically, if it's a big deal, if you're losing more money than $20, then you got the rights of trial by jury shall be preserved. In other words, they have a right to get a jury together and sue a person. And no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States. Then according to the rules of common law. Alright. Amendment 8. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines be imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. So, generally speaking, the most important part of this amendment is that last bit. No cruel and unusual punishment shall be inflicted, basically. And what that means is they can't do really horrible shit to you. And I could probably pull up a few things that I could think of that would probably be considered cruel and unusual. As a matter of fact, tell you what we're going to do real quick is we're just going to Google cruel and unusual punishment. And we're just going to find some examples here. Alright. Alright. Well, most of it seems to just be referring to this amendment here, so I can't really find an example. But generally speaking, it means torture and stuff like that. And excessive bail, that means they can't charge you ridiculous amounts. And same thing with nor excessive fines imposed. Alright, Article 9. And we do have some extra amendments that got added later, but generally speaking, 1 through 10 are the original that were packed in with the Constitution. Alright, excessive bail shall not be required. Oh wait, we just read that one. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be constructed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So basically, anything in the Constitution can't be used to hold down someone else's rights. Alright, 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. So basically what this is saying is, on some level that states have certain rights, basically. This is states' rights. It's what's saying is, you guys have the ability to make your own decision on the local level. Alright. 11th Amendment. Suits against the United States. Alright, let's do it. The judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend to any suit in law or equity commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by the citizens of another state, or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. This one's a bit of a mouthful here. So basically what this is saying is, we got the ability to sue the states. Like, you can say there was this guy versus the state here, and such suits have happened before. Alright, let's see. Amendment 12. Electors shall meet in their respective states, vote by ballot for president and vice president, one of whom at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves. They shall name in their ballots the person who voted for as president. Yada yada yada. Alright, so this is basically just outlining how the president is elected. And here we have Amendment 13. This is a famous one. This one was brought in by Lincoln himself, and it basically makes slavery illegal. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or place subject to their jurisdiction. So basically what that's saying is slavery is off the table, except for like prison labor and shit. Like in those cartoons where you would see the characters in jail and they would be using the pickaxe to do the thing. That's still allowed. Alright. Amendment 14, rights guaranteed and privileges and immunities of citizenship, dual process, and equal protection. Alright, so this is a bigger one. It has multiple parts to it. Let's break it down. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are the citizens of the United States, and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. So basically what this is saying is, if you were born in America or you immigrated here, you are a U.S. citizen if you went through the process. And also because of that, the U.S. government can't do anything to take away your rights. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law. So basically, we can't take your rights away without throwing you in jail first. Nor deny any person within its jurisdiction equal protection of the laws. Representatives shall be appointed among several states, according to their respective numbers, counting the whole, yada yada yada. no person shall be a senator or a representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or any state who, having personally taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer or as a member of any state to support the shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid to comfort the enemies thereof. But Congress may by a vote of 2/3 of each house remove such disability. So basically, what this is saying is, if you're a traitor, you can't run for office unless 2/3, and you'll see 2/3 majority come up a lot. That's what we refer to as a supermajority. And basically what that's saying is, unless Congress says it's okay, you can come in. Otherwise, you can't do that without that 2/3 majority. Alright, the validity of public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned, but neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss or emancipation of any slave, but in all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. So this has a lot to do with Emancipation Proclamation stuff. So a lot of it probably doesn't apply much. Alright, the Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Alright. Rights of citizens to vote. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So basically, no matter your race, you're allowed to vote. Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. Alright, so basically, you gon' get taxed. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, elected by the people thereof, yada yada yada, electors. Okay. When vacancies happen, executive shall issue writs of election. Okay, we went over this previously. Alright, this amendment shall not be so construed as to affect the election of any term of any senator chosen before it becomes valid as part of the Constitution. Okay. Amendment 18. Amendment 18, it's kind of the black sheep of the family. Nobody likes it, and with good reason. It sucks. It's a piece of shit. And it's actually one of the few amendments that was added and then removed later because of just how shitty it was. After 1 year from the ratification of this article, manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within, the importation thereof into, the exportation thereof, the United States and all territories subject to jurisdiction thereof for beverage purposes is hereby prohibited. So basically it's saying beer and alcohol and all that is illegal. And as you can imagine, this would later go on to cause more problems than it's solved, including but not limited to all sorts of people going to jail even though, you know, they didn't do nothing wrong. You had people like Al Capone who had to fill that void. This amendment is why he existed, by the way. He sold alcohol. That's all he did. If prohibition wasn't a thing, then what he would have been doing would have been a perfectly legit business. The Congress and the several states shall have concurrent power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislatures of the several states as provided in the Constitution within 7 years from the date of the submission hereof to the states of the Congress. Alright, so here we have women's rights, the rights of citizens. Alright, so basically, no matter your gender, you can vote. Alright, 20th Amendment. Terms of president shall end at noon on the 20th day of January, and the terms of senators and representatives at noon on the 3rd day of January of the years in which such terms would have ended if this article had not been ratified. Congress shall assemble at least once in every year, and such meeting shall begin on noon on the 3rd day of January, unless they shall by law appoint a different day. If the time fixed for the beginning of the term of the president-elect shall have died, the vice president-elect shall become president. So basically what happens is, let's say if when Donald Trump was elected and he didn't quite become president yet until his whole swearing in thing, if he had died between then, we would have sworn in Mike Pence, not someone from the previous administration. And that's something you'll see consistently throughout the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all these founding documents and such, is that no matter what, for the most part, you're pretty much never gonna be able to extend the terms of anybody in office. No matter what, it's 4 to 8 years, you're done. Just period, plain and simple. Never gonna get back in. You're done. Alright, where were we? Shall become president. If a president shall not have been chosen before the time fixed for the beginning of his term, or if the president-elect shall have failed to qualify, then the vice president-elect shall act as president until a president shall have qualified, and the Congress may by law provide for the case wherein neither a president-elect nor a vice president-elect shall have qualified, declaring who shall then act as president, or the manner in which yada yada yada. Alright, so basically if the president, if some new information came out and was all like, oh, you can't be president because blah blah blah. And then if that didn't happen, if that same thing was true with the vice president, then Congress would get together and have a new election thing. They'd pick a guy until we got our shit together. Alright, sections 1 shall take place 50 day following this article shall be inoperative unless it Alright, Amendment 21, repeal of the 18th Amendment. The 18th article of the amendment is hereby repealed. Transportation or importation to any state therein. Alright, so this is basically the amendment getting rid of the 18th. It's basically like, bye-bye. You're done. You suck. Nobody likes you. Alright. Amendment 22, presidential tenure. No person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice. Fun fact, this rule was created by FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt, after he had successfully won the presidency 4 straight terms in a row. And his whole thing behind it was, no one should be running for office this often, or should be in charge for this long, rather. And another thing, side note, fun fact about FDR, he had polio. He was crippled. Could barely walk. Polio sucks. Don't get it. And yet in spite of that, he still served. Truth be told, I actually don't like FDR that much. His New Deal shit was pretty good, but he threw the Japanese in concentration camps. No person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person who was elected president shall be elected to the office of president more than once. But this is alright, so basically, if you're running for your second term and you lose then, you can't run for another second term later down the line. And if you won your 2 terms, you can't you can't let another guy win and then you run again. You're done. Game over. Alright, for more than 2 years of term, yada. But this article shall not apply to any person holding the office of president when this article was proposed by the Congress, and shall not prevent any person who may be holding the office of president or acting as president during the term within which this article from holding the office of president. So basically, hey, if you're president as this comes up, which is exclusively FDR, we're not going to kick you out. You're going to finish your term and then you're done. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment. Yada yada. Alright, Amendment 23. Presidential electors for the district constituting the seat of government of the United may direct a number of electors as president. Yada 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 yada, but in no event the least populous state shall be in addition to those appointed by the states. They shall be considered for the president and vice president appointed by shall meet in the district. So basically this is just detailing how DC works. It's technically not considered even a part of the United States, but it is allowed to vote and act like one, is what that's saying. Abolition of the poll tax qualification. Right, the rights of citizens of the United States to vote in a primary or for electors, for president to vote, for senate shall not be denied or abridged by the United States. Okay, so basically what this is saying is the government isn't allowed to charge you in order for you to vote. You will never have to pay the government money so that you can vote. It's illegal for them to do that, is what that's saying. It's legal for them to make it so that you can't vote because you can't afford to. Voting is free, no matter what. Alright. This affects the 9th Amendment. Alright, Amendment 25. In the case of removal of President of office or his death, the Vice President shall become President. Whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the Vice President, the President shall nominate a Vice President who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote of both houses in Congress. Whenever the President transmits to the President a pro tempore of the Senate, Speaker of the House, Representatives. Alright. The right of citizens who are 18 shall... Alright. So basically, you gotta be 18 to vote. No law varying the compensation or the services of senators shall take effect until the election of representatives shall have been intervened. Alright, so that's just technical shit. Alright. So I hope that my breakdowns here have helped you guys understand what the government is and isn't allowed to do. As a matter of fact, I'm going to scroll back up here. So the government, as we have just learned here, isn't allowed to prevent you from expressing yourself in any way or prevent you from practicing a religion. It isn't allowed to prevent you from owning a weapon. And it isn't allowed to force soldiers from living in force your bleh, force soldiers to live in your house. It isn't allowed to just break into your home and search for stuff. And it has to have you be put in a jury, and it can't force you to answer a question, and you can't be tried for big deal crimes like murder twice, unless you committed it a second time, I guess. Alright, Sixth Amendment. Alright, the government isn't allowed to stall your trial. Alright. Then we have, you're not allowed to own a slave. So basically, the Constitution, as we've seen here, is meant to outline the structure of our government. And the Bill of Rights and all the amendments here are designed to outline the individual rights of each American citizen. So yeah. Alright. So yeah, I feel it's very important that people know, all this. It's very important that they do. As I have stated. Oh god, I'm rambling. Repeating myself. Shit. It's okay. Alright. So yeah.